Hi, my name is Dave Matthews with JGM Property Group, and today we are going to go over how to perform an HPIR inspection, a HUD property inspection report. We're going to start every inspection by first doing the exterior of the property. We want to ensure that we get all sides of the property in our photos, and then there's some key features that HUD wants us to get photos of to show them the condition. One thing we're going to do is always check the bushes and trees near the home. We want to make sure they are cut back at least 1 foot from the property. Also, we're going to get shots of the roof, showing the roof condition of the property. We're going to get any concerns with our gutters or downspouts to see if those are damaged in any way. We'll also check the yard itself, see if there's any debris. We will report any debris that was left over before HUD took the property, and any other damages you might see. We could have damage to the siding, the soffit. A big concern is always going to be our steps and stairs for health and safety reasons. We want to ensure there's no bad steps where somebody could trip, as well as all the handrails are in place. At this property, you can actually see that the mortgage company most likely came in after they took the property and installed new steps and handrails for the safety. So we'll show a couple of demonstration photos right after this so you can understand the type of photos we're looking for in the report, and then we'll work our way into the house and explain the HPIR from there. Now, something we also need to mention on the exterior of the property is if you do see any debris. The mortgage company, prior to giving the home to HUD, should have removed the majority of the debris from the property. So we definitely want to notate if we do see debris, and if so, how many cubic yards. So we'll put that on a report. You'll look everywhere in the property, the exterior, the crawl space, the attic, check every location for debris. Now, another thing we need to do for HUD, now that this property has been conveyed from the mortgage company over to HUD, is they want to know if there's any utilities on, and they want to know what the current reading and serial number is of that meter. This is so that they can activate or deactivate services while they take over the property. On a gas meter, you're going to have your readings normally up top, and then your serial is usually on a plate. On the electric meter, it is the same way. The reading is up top, and you have the serial is stamped right below the reading area. So you would record that right in your comments section of the HPIR report. We also check the water meter inside, down in the basement. That has the serial right on the side of the metal, and then the readings on the top. And then also note whenever you have something out of the ordinary. If you have fuel oil, if you have propane, just put that in your comments, because that's not going to have a normal serial reading on there. Alright, also on the exterior, we want to take note of some important things. One thing is the electrical meter. Well, part of our job doing the HPIR inspection is to actually test the electrical of the house. Now, in many instances, the power might already be onto the property, but if it's not, we will be backfeeding the house with electricity so that we can test the various outlets and fixtures throughout the house to ensure that they work. We also want to take note of the air conditioner units at the property, make sure that they're still intact, they haven't been damaged. And then we will be accessing also the garage to the property if it does have one. We will perform the same inspection on the garage as we do the house. We're going to note if the electrical's functional, any foundation issues, the condition of the roof. We're going to treat it as part of the home itself. So let's go ahead and step into the garage, and we'll go over what we do inside there. Now, while we're in the garage, we're going to note some things like how structurally sound it is. We're going to look up at the ceiling on the roof, make sure that there's no water marks, that we haven't been getting a roof leak. Also, this is a common spot where debris might have been left over from the mortgage company. So we're going to look in the rafters, ensure that there's nothing up in there. And one of our duties doing the HPIR inspection is also to ensure that the property is fully secured. This includes all outbuildings as well as the home itself. Now, the mortgage company should have done this prior to us coming to the property, but we do want to make sure that it does have locks on all of our doors, And then we want to ensure that they're to the proper HUD key code. HUD does use specific keys for their padlocks as well as their doorknobs on all their properties. Now, when we do the HPIR inspection, one of the things that we're doing for HUD is we're testing the various systems of the home. This includes the plumbing of the home, the HVAC system, the roof, any built-in appliances in the property, and some other various systems. So the first thing you want to do when you come inside the home is not just immediately start inspecting. You want to first get to the plumbing access, and we're going to start to pressurize this system. Now, the majority of homes you're going to go into are already going to be winterized. All the water should have been drained from the system. They should have already added antifreeze to the traps and prepared this property for the winter without it being occupied. Now, even though they already did this process, we want to do it again to verify for damages for HUD. So the best way to do this is using an air compressor. We actually hook right up to the laundry facilities. That way we can plug into the hot and the cold. So you can see here we have a Y pipe, and we're going to plug directly into the hot and cold water for our pressure test. Now once we get everything set up, we're going to go ahead and power up the air compressor and go throughout the house, shutting off all the valves and making sure this does get to pressure. Now, this step is important because we want it to hold pressure for up to 20 minutes to prove that there's no leaks throughout the house. If the house does not have power, we would also have to then backfeed the house with electricity to perform this test, and we'll show you how to do that in just a second. Now, when we're doing the winterization, you should have a gauge on your actual air compressor. They sell those with the Y pipe system itself, or you can just get an air compressor that actually shows your gauges. On this style, we have one that shows the actual pressure of the tank, and then it has a second gauge for our outlet pressure, meaning to the rest of the home. So we're going to turn this on, we're going to fill the entire system with air, that's the hot water tank, all these lines, and we're hoping that it'll get to 50 psi. We want it to hold that level for up to 20 minutes. So we'll turn this on, let it start filling up the house. We're going to go through and open up all the valves in the various bathrooms. We'll show you some demonstration photos. That's ensuring that the water did get cleared from the property. There is some instances you might walk into a property and they never winterized it. So we're going to clear all the water out, shut all the valves off, and we're going to wait 20 minutes with this fully pressurized to ensure there's no leaks in the house. Now as we're going through the property, we're going to actually open all of the valves and feel for that air pressure. You can hear that air compressor going in the basement. So we're trying to clear all these lines of any excess water they may have, and then we're going to shut them off. So a lot of times when we're doing the HPIR inspection, we'll let that air compressor run down at the utility connection. And as I'm going through the house, getting my additional photos of all my rooms, I'm going to go through and test and shut off all of these different water fixtures. Now the kitchen's pretty easy, straightforward, it's just your faucet. But we're going to move to the bathroom because we have 3 different fixtures there, and there's different ways to test each of those. Now when we're testing in the bathroom, obviously your sinks are going to be pretty straightforward. You open and close them, test them out. Same with the bathtub. But the toilets cause a little bit more of an issue. Because the problem is with the toilets, you actually have a float valve that turns on and off the water. Well, all of these systems should have already been drained for the winterization, so it is constantly on. So we'll let the air come through, we'll listen for it. If we hear that the air is coming through, we're actually going to reach down here and shut off the water valve to this toilet. That way it seals off this part of the system, we know it's working, but we want to be able to build pressure, and this is where you're going to leak pressure from first and foremost. Now the last place you're going to test is going to be outside at all your spigots. Now this is really important because a lot of times these will get missed during a winterization. And the problem is being so close to the exterior, this is where a lot of times we will find damage to the valves or to the plumbing. So just like the other fixtures in the home, you want to open it up, feel for that pressure. If you have pressure coming out, go ahead and shut it down. And then we're really just now waiting for that air compressor to max out where we set it at 50 psi and hold that level for up to 20 minutes. That way we can ensure there's no leaks throughout this property. Now, as I mentioned, on some of these properties the power may be off, but it's our responsibility doing the HPIR inspection to actually power up the house if it's safe to do so, and to test the electrical throughout the home. Now, the easiest way to do that is using what we call these pigtails. What it is each of these are the various 220 volt plugs that you would use in any home. We have some that are for dryers, some that are for the ranges in a home, and there's 4 different styles. You have a 20 amp and a 30 amp of a 3-prong style that's non-grounded, and then you have the same thing in a 4-prong style. This is a grounded style. And all we do with these pigtails is these are just dryer cords, and we place this 220 volt generator adapter on the end of it. Now, you are going to need a generator that has 220 volt supply coming out of it. You can actually see coming off that we do have a long extension cord. We usually recommend 75 feet, and we will plug these cords right into the 220 outlet in the home when the power's off to the home, and that'll become our main breaker. We're going to feed power from our generator right into the 220. That'll power both sides of the box simultaneously, and it'll allow us to winterize and test the system in the home. So let's go ahead and go inside and show you how to connect these. So in this house, I already found a 220 outlet. This is down in the basement near our utility sink, and this would have been an electric dryer hookup. So I find the appropriate pigtail. We're going to go ahead and plug this into the box, plug this into our generator, and then the first thing we're going to do is check the electrical box, and we're going to rethink how this home is being powered. This unit has just now become our main breaker. So we'll go over to the panel and I'll show you how we're going to address a property without power. Now, when you're at your panel, you're going to see that there is your main breaker coming in. We're going to ensure that this is turned off. The reason for that is that when we backfeed power through the house, even though we don't have power coming from the meter, we want to eliminate any risk of the power leaving our home and into that meter outside. So ensure that is off, and then we also shut off all the other breakers. Now in this home, I actually have 2 220 connections. I have, it looks right here is for the basement where we plugged in at, and then this one here is for the range upstairs. So what we'll do is we'll first turn on the one in the basement. This is now our main breaker. All the power from our generator is now feeding through the home into this breaker. We're going to one by one go through and turn each of these breakers on. If you note a problem and one of these breakers instantly trips, that's when we stop and back away from doing the backfeed. We obviously have an electrical issue, so we'll stop there. But we'll go ahead and go through, wait for the systems to turn on in the home, and then we can move on to our next step, which would be testing the fixtures and the outlets throughout the home. Now, if the home didn't have power, obviously you would have to do this step first before you could start your winterization. So that's why we jump in right away and we power up the home and we winterize first and foremost, because we have a lot more work to do apart from this. Now, in the rare circumstance that you do have a home that does not have a 220 outlet, the safest way for us to backfeed is to introduce a 220 outlet. So what we have here is we use one of our pigtails and we just put on some cable here for it. Now we would actually take the panel off, and then what we're going to do is we have 2 hots for each side of the panel and a neutral. Now your 220 breakers, you might have one, say, for an air conditioner, but you can't plug into an air conditioner. So we can actually plug these wires right into that air conditioner breaker, and it'll serve as our fuse for that part of the grid. So we'll plug in there, and then we can plug our generator into this box. I'll show you opening up the panel where we're going to do this at. So what you're going to do when you open up a box and introduce a plug is look for one of these 220 outlets. You can see right here I have 2 in a row. They happen to be a dryer and stove, but let's say it was just an air conditioner. So what I'm going to do is my red and my black, which are my 2 hot lines, I'm actually going to plug into the 2 hot lines on this breaker. What these large breakers do is they actually cross over both sides of the box. So when I plug into both of those, it's going to power both sides of this panel up, including the entire house. Now, you also do have your neutral line, which you need to make sure to put into your neutral bar. So we'll wire these directly into the box right there. We'll leave the panel off while we're testing, and then before we leave, we'll remove it, put the panel back in place, and just ensure that the wires that you loosened up to fit these, you tighten them back in place properly. Now, worst case scenario, we walk into a home and there is no 220 breakers you can plug into. One thing you can do, and still be very careful, you want to use your electrical tester and test both of these hot lines coming directly in from that meter. Make sure they're not active. If they're not active, our last resort is we will put our 2 hots right on our main breaker here, using our main breaker as our main. But again, you must verify that both of these are not hot. We do not want to feed any power back into the power grid. That could cause damage to your generator and to the transformer and the lines outside, and that's something you would be liable for. So ensure you test both of those. Again, you would hook your neutral to your neutral bar here, and then that would be your last resort for testing. Now, if you get an older home that has, say, glass fuses or knob and tube, we do not test those. They are unsafe to test. You have no good way to plug into that. And so we will just take photos of it, show it to the client, let them know it is unsafe to test the system, and we will skip the portion of the electrical testing. If that's the case, you're going to actually hook up your air compressor just using a normal extension cord from your generator. So you can still test the plumbing, but we'll bypass this if it was outdated. Now that we have the home powered up, we're actually going to go throughout the property and we're going to test light fixtures, we're going to test outlets, we're going to make sure that this home is electrically sound, that we don't see any major issues. Now, another part of that is any built-in appliances. This would include garbage disposals, built-in microwaves or hood vents, any built-in stoves or ovens, dishwashers. There's going to be anything that is bolted into the home. We want to test it and make sure it works. Now, this home actually has a garbage disposal right here, and I'm going to go ahead and test it real quick. Ooh, and right away we found an issue. I go to turn on this garbage disposal, it's bound up, and not only that, I'm getting sparks from this switch. So there's some kind of issue with the electrical coming here. Right away I'm going to stop testing this feature, we're going to walk away. We need to make sure we note this on the report going back to HUD. We can move on though to the other outlets. This is just a standard electrical tester. You could go through the home, each of the rooms, test the outlets and make sure they're all functioning properly. And then we'll also go ahead and test some of the lighting, make sure that the lighting's turning on in these rooms as well. We can also test 220 outlets. This one had a range plug here. We'll use the same electrical tester to test all of this. Now, as you're going through the home, this is where we're going to actually be taking photos of each room. You want to make sure to get 2-3 shots of each room, take it from every angle, so that the client can see the entire room you're talking about. As I go from room to room, I'm also going to perform my electrical test. We're trying to be as efficient as possible here and just go through the house, complete our plumbing test, electrical test, and our actual property condition report all in one set. You can see here, I've got this light functioning, the fan is spinning, so I know this is fine. I would then just move on to some of these outlets, test my outlets, make sure they're also working properly. And if I do note a problem, I'll put that in my report. Now we're going to move on to our hot water tank. You're going to get usually standard tanks, electrical or gas. If they are electrical hot water tanks, you do want to make sure to leave the breaker off to them. By heating up an empty hot water tank, you could damage the elements. This one happens to be a gas hot water tank, and the issue is this property's already been winterized, which means the gas is off to the property. This entire tank has already been drained, so all we can really do is comment visually on what's going on with this hot water tank. Right away I see we have our pressure relief valve. This should have a pipe going all the way to the floor. So my only comment's going to be is that my pressure relief line has been cut. I need to take care of that. The next important thing is to look down at the condition at the bottom. Usually when doing a visual inspection, the only thing you can do is see the exterior condition, so the real tell is going to be inside. Do the burners look okay? Are they rusted? If you get a flooded basement, you might even see rust lines coming up to here. Problem with that is the outside might look great, but inside it's no longer functional. That burner has rusted out. So we'll go ahead, open these doors up, take some nice clear photos showing the burner, and if they look okay, we're going to just say, we performed a visual inspection, everything looks okay, but we were unable to test it due to the fact that it has already been drained. Now another system we need to test in the home is going to be the HVAC system. We need to make sure to come over here and turn on our system for heat, and if possible we'll also turn on the cooling system. What we want to see is that the system actually powers up, we hear the exhaust fans kick on, any igniters we might get a photo of. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it on auto, turn the temperature up, so now I can see that it's calling for heat down in the basement. We're going to go downstairs and check that furnace. Let's see if it's working. Now, if the bank did the job properly in winterizing, they're going to do the exact same process we are. which means they're going to come through and shut off all the gas valves to the furnace, hot water tanks, any gas fixtures, as well as shut the power off to those. So right now that thermostat upstairs is running, calling for heat, but this furnace is actually off. So I'm going to locate the on switch. I know my breaker's on at the box. I'll go ahead and turn this part on. And there we go. You can actually hear right away the exhaust fan kicked on. That's a good sign. We're going to turn around and get inside this furnace. And what we're going to do is we're looking, we know the exhaust fan's working, we're looking for the igniter. I've got the igniter glowing nice and red. So far the electrical components are working very well on this property. That's really all we can do. This property had the gas shut off. So what we're going to do is turn around and report to HUD that we tested the furnace, it was electrically functional, the exhaust fan kicked on, the blower motor kicked on, our igniter kicked on, but we couldn't test it any further than that because we don't have gas. So the only thing else we're going to do is just note the condition. This one's got a little bit of surface rust, but all in all, it looks to be in fairly good condition. Now, just like with the furnace inside, we're also going to have to test the AC unit of the property. To do that, you're going to use the same step, but instead of using heat, we're going to switch it to cool and obviously turn the temperature down. What we're looking for, we can't really fully test the system, but we're hoping that the condenser is going to activate. We'll hear the blower motor kick on. And again, we're going to report that back to HUD as whether it's electrically functional or not. Now keep in mind with air conditioners, there is a few extra steps because you do have your own dedicated fuse for your air conditioner. You need to make sure that is on, if it's even present. And then again, any damages you might see, if you had rotted coils, anything of that nature, we want to make sure that we report that back for the AC unit. Now, many times in the winter, it is too cold in the home to actually activate the AC because you can only get the thermostat to go down so far. If that's the case, again, we're going to do a visual inspection like we did the hot water tank and say, you know, visually it looks okay, I don't see any exterior damage, but I was unable to test and we cannot verify its operation. So now we're going through the home, and as I said, we're testing the electrical as we go through, and you want to take pictures of the actual property itself. Normally what we're going to do is when we first walk in, we'll take a photo going this direction. We'll then turn around and get another angle. Now I'm going to actually test some electrical, and then I'm going to note any damages that I might see. Now this room actually isn't too bad. It's got fairly new carpet. There's on the HUD report, they ask if there's any urine or feces stains. We're good. This carpet's almost brand new. However, we do have some cracks in the drywall. Now, on the report for the HPIR, it does ask you if there's a little bit of drywall damage. Now, this is very minor. It's just stress cracks, but we will make sure to include that in our report. Whenever you're doing this inspection, we're also going to check any attics, any crawl spaces. So since we're upstairs, we're going to go into the side attic access of this property and make sure there's no debris and also no obvious roof leaks coming in from the inside that we can see. Now, earlier, we already completed an exterior inspection. Now, based on what I saw from the outside, I didn't see any obvious roof leaks. But roof leaks can come in very small forms. Many times, you'll get a leak right around the chimney due to bad flashing, or it could just be one loose shingle that might be leaking. So it's very important when you're taking your attic photos, you want to get a shot of the actual wood. You want to get a picture showing that it's clean wood. We don't have any black water rot growing on that wood. So that's going to complete our roof inspection. We check the inside, we check the outside. If you don't see any signs of current damage or previous damage, we're good. Now, if you do see damage, we need to report that however you saw it. Many times there'll be leftover damage where the mortgager actually repaired the roof, but they left the rotted drywall. That's something you're going to have to check for yourself. Is that an active leak, or is it just previous damage from a previous leak? So you're going to report that properly. You're going to have one spot on the HPIR that says, is the roof leaking? And then another spot that says, is there damage from a roof leak? So just make sure to fill that out properly. Check it out thoroughly. This is one of the major concerns for HUD. Now, while you're doing the kitchen and bathrooms and even bedrooms, one important thing to do with your photos, apart from getting 2-3 different angles of the room, is we need to check all of these cabinets and cupboards and make sure there's no debris. Again, on our HPIR report, we do have to report any debris that's present. So a good idea is to come in, get your overall shot of the room, open up all your cabinets and get shots of your cabinets all open and empty. And if they're not empty, now we're going to put on a report. You know, debris was found here, it was found in a closet, it was found in an attic. It's very important to get these photos so that the contractor behind us knows what they're going to have to clean up. Now, as I said earlier, part of our responsibility when doing the HPIR inspection is to ensure that the home is properly secured. Now again, the mortgage company should have already done this, but there is going to be cases between the overlap where we get to a property and there might be unsecure areas of the home. We want to go through the home as we're inspecting each room, ensure that all your windows are completely locked. We're then also going to go downstairs, make sure all of our doors and windows are secure. If you do see a problem, a broken window that's completely out, or a damaged door that's been kicked in, we need to report that. They will send contractors right behind us to board up and then eventually repair these areas of the home. So we definitely want to check everything, report everything we see, that way we can get this taken care of right away. Now another photo you must get when doing a HPIR is any handrails that are required. If you have a basement or an upstairs, even just the steps outside to the front door. This is a very big concern. It's a hazard on the property if they're not there. So what I would do is for every set of steps, we're going to take a photo showing that there's a handrail. Now, if a handrail is missing or damaged, needs to be replaced, we're going to actually report back to HUD and let them know this is missing a handrail or has a damaged handrail, and you are going to need a 12-foot rail to fix this location. Again, they will send the contractors to repair this as soon as possible. Another hazard we really need to point out for HUD is if there's any trip hazards. Now, trip hazards are going to come in multiple forms. You're going to get uneven tile, you're going to get buckled flooring, you could have warped floors just coming through the home. So whenever we see it, we need to make sure to get a photo of it, point out where the trip hazard is. In this case, they put linoleum tile on top of wood and we have some missing pieces. Now, that's not a very big lip, but if somebody's not paying attention and they catch their foot on that, this could cause somebody to trip. Now, most clients, when you're doing an HPIR, they're going to want you to notate these on the property, either using a red duct tape or a caution tape. That way the next person to walk into the home doesn't actually trip on the trip hazard you noted. Now, another hazard we have to take care of is any exposed electrical hazards. If you get into a property and there's light fixtures missing or outlets missing, we want to make sure to cap the wires to those outlets. That way nobody brushes their hand against them and actually gets an electrical shock. Another thing we do is outlet covers. If you do walk into a home and there's outlet covers missing, make sure that you take a photo showing that it was missing and then you actually installing an outlet cover in its place. We usually report on our HPIR how many outlet covers and wire caps we had to use to secure the electrical hazards in the home as well. Now, the last hazard we have to be concerned about is going to be gas lines. We want to ensure that any gas lines that are open do receive a cap. So you are going to have to keep some gas caps with you in various sizes. So we'll go throughout the property, any location that might possibly have a gas line. This is where the stove would have hooked up. There's most likely also one down in the basement where the dryer may have hooked up. And then any other various heating source that you might find in the home. So double check them all. If there is a cap on it, which there should be, make sure you get a photo to show that there is. So we'll take care of this hazard and that'll complete the hazard section of the HPIR. Now, another concern for the HUD properties is if we have lead-based paint. One of the questions on the HPIR report is going to be, did you find any flaking, peeling, chipping paint in the property? And does it indicate that there might be lead there? Now, based on the property, this is going to be any property built in 1978 or before. If you had a brand new property, it clearly is not going to be lead. But if it was built in 78 or prior, then we have to notate the location, the size, and then put that on the report so that they know to indicate that it could possibly have lead at this property. Now, we've gone through our home, we've checked all of our hazards, and if this had good plumbing in the home, within this time you should have actually heard your air compressor shut off. The reason it should have shut off is because all the plumbing was good. The system held pressure, it would have pressurized the tank, and it should be holding. You would be listening during your inspection for this, because if there was any mild leaks, which we do get quite often, you would hear the air compressor kick on occasionally to refill that pressure. Now, in this home's case, it didn't hold pressure at all. We actually have visible damage right here to the shutoff valve. So what I'm going to have to do is, on my HUD report, I'm going to actually take photos of any damage I see of the plumbing and inform them that I could not get the system to hold pressure. They're going to ask me, was there a sufficient supply of water? And I'm going to have to say no. because this needs to be repaired and any other damage needs to be repaired first before we can even begin to assess it further. So we'll notate this on the report and we'll move on. Now if it did hold pressure, you would report that everything came out fine. You would go through, check all your fixtures again, make sure everything's good, listen for any slight leaks you might be getting from your faucets. You're also making sure your hot water tank is completely drained, and that'll end the winterization side of this. Now, depending on what type of water system you have while doing the winterization is going to determine this last step. This one happens to be a city water supply, so you're going to have an inlet from the city and then going into the home. What we need to do is actually cap this inlet from the city and make sure we zip tie the shutoff valve in the closed position. We are going to test it and make sure the water is off at the street before we cap it. That's part of our report. HUD is asking us, is it off at the street? If it's not, they're going to have to request to have it shut off. Now, once we're done with this, we're going to actually go ahead and tag that zip tie. Normally we write the name of our company and the date, put that on the zip tie. That way if anybody tampers with our winterization, we'll know. By doing this, we're shutting off the system completely. We already reported what damages we found or didn't find, and now we know that's the status it was when we left it. Now that we've actually completed the pressurizing side of the winterization, we've shut off our meter downstairs, tagged it, we're going to complete the winterization. Even though the company behind us may have already done this process, we want to do it again for our own side. So what we're going to do is actually use what they call RV antifreeze. This is a glycol-based, non-toxic antifreeze, and we're going to pour that every place that has a trap. That's going to be here in the kitchen sink, and usually you need at least a cup in each one. That way you fill up that trap, get the water out, so if it does freeze, it doesn't cause damage. We're then going to also place this in the back of the toilet tank, in the toilet bowl itself, in your bathtub or showers, in your bathroom sinks, your utility sink downstairs, and if you happen to have just a drain for a washing machine, we'd also pour it down that. Now as we do that, your client for HUD should have a winterization posting. So we're going to actually have to make one for each fixture that we put antifreeze into. Normally that consists of you putting your name and date on it, and depending on your client's requirements, you're then going to tape it onto the fixture, letting everyone know that walks into this house that this fixture has been winterized and you cannot use it until you de-winterize the property. Now, apart from your winterization postings, we actually have a posting for HUD themselves that needs to go on your main window closest to the street or front door so that anybody who comes by the property knows who's managing that property. The information you're going to put on there is going to be the case number for the property, which you'll be provided, as well as the address, city, state, and zip code. So we're going to actually tape that onto the property with that information, and then we always put our winterization posting up there as well. This lets anyone know before they even walk into the property that this property's been winterized and they cannot turn on any of the fixtures when they come into the home. One of the other requirements with HUD is that we leave a sign-in sheet. Everybody who walks into a HUD home, whether it be a real estate agent, an HPIR inspector, a contractor, whatever the case may be, must sign in to the sign-in sheet for every visit they come there, also explaining why they came to the property. So on the sign-in sheet, we're going to do the same thing as that front posting. We're going to put the case number, the address, city and state, and zip code, and then we're going to put our name, which company you're representing, the date you were at the property, and what your purpose of visit was. For our case, we would be the first one at the property, so we're putting a brand new sign-in sheet in, putting our name, company, date, and then saying we are performing the HPIR parts 1, 2, and 3. Now, part of the securing is the actual doors themselves. HUD uses a specific set of keys on all of their properties, and they also have a specific padlock that they use. Many times, the mortgage company uses these exact same key codes. Now, depending on your client's requirements, we'll tell you which keys they allow, but many of them allow any of the HUD keys. So what you're going to do is actually check your keys, see if they are keyed to a proper HUD key. If so, we'll note it on the report. We'll say this home was already keyed with a 35241, and out in the garage we had a padlock and it was A389. Now, if this key code was not an approved HUD key or not approved by your specific client, we are then going to have to remove this lock and replace it with the appropriate one. You're going to want to get before shots showing it. A lot of times we'll put our key in, do a thumbs down photo, explain this is not the proper lock. Then we'll take a shot of the locks out of it, and then a shot of our new lock that we're putting into it. Now, and at the end, you always want to verify by having a key in the door and turned and clearly displaying the key code that's being used at that property. Another portion of the HPIR is whether or not we have a pool or hot tub at the property. This is a concern just because of the risk factor involved. HUD wants to make sure that if they are present that they're secured, and if not, we need to report that so the contractors can secure them. So what they talk about in securing is a few different things. If you had a hot tub or jacuzzi outside, you want to make sure it has a cover on it. Now, properly secured means that there was actually hasp and padlocks. Nobody can access that hot tub. Now, a pool is going to be a little bit different depending on the style of pool. An in-ground pool might have a wood top, which is unapproved, or what we call a trampoline top. It is a canvas top with springs going over the entire top of the pool. Now, that is the pool being secured, but HUD also wants to know if the gates to that pool are secured. That way we risk the liability of anybody coming into that property and falling into a pool or hot tub. And the same can be said about an above ground pool. If it's got a decking going up to the pool, we want to make sure any gates are in place and they are locked properly. Now, we've gone over most of the main sections of an HPIR report. Now, obviously there is going to be some variances in this report depending on the type of property you're inspecting. This property happened to have city water. Now, if you had a well system, we would drain the well tank and perform the inspection that way by shutting off the well. There is some other variances. You might not have a forced air system. We might have a boiler system for heat. If that's the case, it's an entirely additional step. We're going to actually pressure test the plumbing for the boiler just like we did for the water lines in the home. So there is going to be some differences from home to home, but essentially it's the same process beginning to end. We want to come into the property. We want to do all of our exterior photos first, note any damages, any concerns. The first thing we're going to do when we come into the property is get the property powered up and get our winterization started, because that takes the longest. We have 20 minutes to hold pressure, and sometimes it takes 20 minutes to even get to pressure, so get that done first. We're going to go through our home, notate any of the hazards, any damages, test our electrical as we're doing it, test our plumbing as we're doing it, and then when we get all the way to the end, we're going to report this all on our HPIR report. These systems checks and will be provided to the next homeowner, and it's also determining if this property needs to go back to the mortgage company or whether HUD is going to keep it in their inventory and pay out the insurance on it. Now, we've gone over all of the major sections of the HPIR report for you. We will provide, right after this, some demos of the type of photos that we would expect with your report. We'll go through and show you each step that we took to get to this process in order, and that is the same result we expect to get back from you. If you ever have any questions or concerns about a property while on site, you always call from site. If we have an issue with a flooded basement or currently leaking roof, just call your office, have your office take care of that immediately with the contractors. But that's how you perform an HPIR. Thank you for watching.